SJWs, you know, single Jewish women, or snappy, janky wigwam. This video is not going to make me many friends. Yeah, we're talking about social justice warriors. Over the past couple of years, this has been a term that has become infused with our society. It's commonplace knowledge anymore, especially for those who are online quite a bit. Yay, internet! But anyway, this is something that has the best of intentions sort of at heart, considering social justice aims to try to right some of the wrongs of the past, bring some inequalities to equality, and things of that variety. However, SJWs have garnered a sincere reputation of those that are very loud, obnoxious, and unwilling to back down. They're seen as whiny, they're seen as radical, and they're seen as folks that probably couldn't actually damage a housefly if you got them in a room together. Either way, there is still a lot of folks on the other side of this coin that still believe in the concept of equality, that still believe in the concept of justice, but have absolutely no tie or desire to have a tie with what these folks seem to be peddling. It's almost like they have bad drugs that sound good at the time, they're going to cure pain, but at the same time they're also going to make you a pain in the ass. Let's find out 5 reasons why people hate social justice warriors. And we're going to start, of course, because numbers are fun, with number 5, or perhaps that number needs its own identity. Let's call it Klingwom. Well, number Klingwom, they're annoying. So this is probably the most bare bones explanation that you have, and that's why it's here at number Klingwom, or number 5. Most people take a look at the arguments that are based by social justice warriors, read the general consensus, and notice that it does have a couple of bearing pieces of actual relevance that they can see in the outside world, but then read further and see how some of these are constructed, and kind of scratch their heads a little bit before bashing them up against their desks. This is seen as really abrasive individuals that are calling for immediate change without having any sort of desire to go out and, maybe participate in it. They feel that it should be something that happens almost instantaneously, just based upon their own desire. It's why the whole idea of special snowflake has really come into modern society. It's the feeling that each and every person is 100% special, we are all 100% wonderful, and there are no losers, only winners. We all win because we're the best. Well, I'm going to tell you something right now, ladies and gentlemen. None of us are special. We're all pretty typical. We're all pretty average. Some people just think that they have more than most and that makes them special. But SJWs are annoying considering they want to push and peddle this idea on society, which, like I said, whenever they introduce the whole idea or the concept, usually is okay until they decide to further their arguments. Number 4, they're constantly playing the victim. Oh wait, forgot to give this its own identity. Let's call it Leishnoff. So number Leishnoff consistently playing the victim, and I can't consistently talk because, oh no, I've been triggered. Yeah, that's exactly what triggering is all about. Playing the victim towards something that you hear, something that you see, and this is something that seems to happen constantly. Now I'm a poet. Oh no, I'm poet's kin. This is something that has always been a core part of this playbook, it seems. It seems that going from one thing to the next and seeing yourself as a victim as opposed to a part of the solution is the way in which things are going to magically get done. If there are enough victims in society, they have to listen to us. I read once about somebody stating that they were pissed off because of the Game of Thrones rape scene and how it was terrible for women, or how extreme metal is extremely bad for women, either that or for people who are depressed, or people who have this, or people who have... Let's just play this as it is. In the past, not even 8 months, here in America, we've had controversies that involve a coffee cup, and we've had controversies that involve a sweater. So something that holds liquid and something that we wear, that way we don't freeze to death in the wintertime, has been the subject of bane simply based upon the message or the lacking of a message that is presented on them. That is playing the victim to the highest level of degree. Here's a little secret that I need to tell each and every one of you. Regardless to what happens in life, something is going to hurt you. Whether it be another person, whether it be some words, whether it be something that happens, your best friend, dog dying or something like that, you are going to get hurt at some point in time. Trying to eliminate all hurtful words or hurtful speech or hurtful this and that is a virtual impossibility, because eventually you're going to get pissed off and hurt by the word the. And whenever that happens, then all language is dead and all media is fucked, and we're all basically just going to be grayscale idiots. Wow, how fun will that be? Number 3, causing more division than unity. This is something that perhaps is not spoken as much as it is seen, and it's based off of the idea of this, if you're not with us, you're against us attitude. Now, that attitude by itself is not a terrible thing to really have. However, whenever it involves social justice, it does tend to cause a lot of gray area and cause a lot of discomfort, which I thought that's what they were aiming to avoid. I'm really confused. Oh yeah, I forgot to give this number its own identity. It's Del Monte applesauce. There we go. But this is something where if it's more so the degree of agreeance or the degree of non-agreeance that causes this whole idea of more division than unity. It's something where if you are not 100% on their side and feel their views 100% of the time, similar to what you see in most traditional online arguments, it's one thing that causes a whole swell of negative emotion. It's instead something where they cannot believe that you don't fully see things from their perspective. We'll go back to that nice little sweater scenario and we'll say that, let's say that this sweater had something that was bad for one person. And because it was bad for one person, but you don't think that it's really all of that bad for one person, you're immediately the bad person because you didn't realize that it was bad for one person, or you just saw words as opposed to these hurtful little daggers that we were able to type out and print on things, and then they grow little magical, rifle finger dingers and shoot people, rifle shells and whatever. I don't know, this is something that's really ridiculous, but it's based off of the idea that you need to be fully on their side and fully supporting the same thing. There's no gray area, and if they actually admit that there's gray area, I'm sure that they won't admit it a little bit down in the future. Am I saying that all SJWs are bad in this video, by the way? No, I'm not. There are some folks out there that believe in these causes because they're probably part of the cause. Either that or there's something about them that really speaks to them. This is not something that's supposed to be collective for everybody. This is instead something that's speaking about the extremes, and that's really what this series is based around, the extremes. But however, just like with an apple tree, if you see one rotten apple, are you going to cut down the entire tree? No, but based off of an SJW's philosophy, you probably should. Number 2, they disallow the gray area or middle ground, and it's something that we talked a little bit with number 3. And oh wait, forgot the identity. This is sword spawn. And sword spawn is one that is kind of what plays into this whole combatants angle that goes on here. That gray area in the middle where somebody perhaps likes both sides of the issue, either that or can see things from both sides of the issue, is kind of where things get a little bit wonky, especially whenever some of the arguments that are presented by SJWs have that same idea. For example, on the issue of abortion, well, a woman has the right to choose. She also has the right to choose to decide to abort her raped baby. However, this is something that seems to not always take into consideration the idea of adoption, which is definitely a gray area for some. Some people want to do that, other people don't, but this is something that's presented very much in a my way or the highway style philosophy. What about gun control? That's something that's come back up again because of the Pulse shootings down in Orlando, Florida. Some people are saying that all guns should be banned, and that's the way it should be, while other people think that it's something that needs a little bit more of a closer monitoring. This is something where people who are suspected as terrorists should not have the ability to buy guns. There's this and that part of the argument. Why can't you combine the two of them together in order to form some sort of policy of compromise? That's kind of the problem here. There is no idea or concept of compromise. It does not seem to register. This is something that's seen throughout the whole entirety of this endeavor, and it's something that actually does one thing that is extremely, extremely negative. And we're going to call it number 1, and we're going to continue calling it number 1, because the number 1 is what everybody expects they want to be, but the number 1 reason why people hate SJWs is probably a reason that you don't even realize it until now. Their methods are actually hurting those that they claim to help instead of actually helping them. Now, there are a lot of individuals that are suffering out there in this world, whether they be minorities, whether they be those who are suffering from different diseases, maybe those that were born with certain diseases, perhaps the LGBT community, if you want to throw them in there as well. Really, everybody out there that is part of a cause that wants to get a little bit of noticeability and just wants to have some basic rights. That's what social justice and social justice warriors should be aiming to actually help out with. However, the problem is that there's an over-personalization that has occurred here. And if you notice how the tone has now gone to serious, it's because this is a serious problem. There are a lot of people out there that are definitely suffering from some of the different things that were mentioned. Either that, or there have been rights that have been denied, or this or that has occurred. However, the over-personalization and the way in which the over-combatants of the SJW phenomenon has really caused this sort of pseudo-repetition, this sort of championing that is very similar to religion, where all you do is repeat the same efforts over and over again, hoping that they will one day stick, is not a philosophy that's necessarily helping these folks out. In fact, the reality of it is, it's hurting them a lot more. It hurts them because now, just by them being a part of what you're aiming, what an SJW is aiming to really save, either that or the equality that an SJW is aiming to really attain, Just by being a part of that group that is hoping to attain that equality, you're being seen as one of them. There's sort of like this guilt by association, and this is on the fault and on the part of those that are on the outside. Those are the fault of those that are here that don't really like the SJWs. However, an SJW doesn't see it this way. They don't see this as something that's hurting. They see themselves as doing great things. But here's the problem. It's just like any other addiction. It's just like heroin. It's just like drugs. Once one cause is complete, and the concept is now 100% A-okay, then what happens? They find something else. They go from one thing to another. They gain offense from one thing to the next. The next part of culture that decides to trigger them, the next part of culture that decides to give them a little bit of worry, they immediately latch onto that. It's a very pack mentality idea. And whenever it comes to music, they're definitely starting there too. Take a look at lyricism. Take a look at videos. How they're already questioning some of the objective natures or the really bad things that these videos present. Either that, or there's a recent article that even said that they're starting to take a look at extreme metal and look at it as a negative thing. They're basically the PMRC, only they've gone pro, and they're pros for all elements of culture, as opposed to just one. And instead of it going through the legal channels, or instead of this going through channels that actual change could actually, take place, this is instead being done from an outside perspective, almost like a citizens mob, only a citizens mob that's not marching toward Washington, a citizens mob that isn't trying to go about this in a true peaceful manner as they claim that they are. This is instead something that's being done in the wrong way. It's something where it's being looked at and seen in the wrong light, principally because the way in which it's being done is equivalent to that of a spoiled, little kid, somebody who has their toys taken away, but yet their brothers and sisters still get to play with their toys, even though they themselves were bad, and something actually happened to cause that negative response. That's the problem here. The problem is that they want to have that ability to have a negative response and also have their toys. And that's just not the way that society works. It's not the way that psychology works. And it's not the way that governance works. This is just the way that it works in the eyes and the mind of an SJW. This has not exactly been a fun video. This is not one that I've been very pleased in order to really talk about. However, this is something that has become a large part of the culture that we currently live in. And something that, even if I were to somehow have created this video in a sterling light, showcasing a brilliant middle ground, and somehow, some way, bringing, positivity to every single side of this argument, would not have been seen as good enough. So, if you wish to abuse, if you wish to comment, if you wish to talk some smack, the comments section is below for you to do that. You can call me an asshole, you can say that I'm just a part of the patriarchy, and you can, make fun of me considering I decided to give some of the numbers their own identity. But then you have to sit back and realize that a little bit of this is based off of the things that you do. Maybe I'm actually part of the cause. Maybe I feel that numbers need a new identity. Maybe that's just how ridiculous this is becoming. I'm not going to claim I'm a dragon. I'm not going to claim I'm a toaster. I'm not even going to say I'm a 3-ring binder. But I am saying that this whole culture that has emerged based around this has transformed itself into a 3-ring circus. And I'm really not too sure who the ringmaster is, but they have their work cut out for them.